You know how everyone always says The Boys is one of the most messed up shows on television? Well, that's true. Anthony Starr's Homelander is genuinely terrifying, the violence is gnarly, and the show has crossed lines that most networks would never let exist. But here's the thing, nobody who only watches the show seems to understand. The show is the toned-down version. Garth Ennis' original comic series is so much darker, so much more deranged, and so much more nihilistic that the show actually looks like a Disney adaptation by comparison. Once you read the comics, you start to realize how many compromises Eric Kripke had to make just to get this thing on Amazon. So today let's break down exactly how much worse the source material is, because there is genuinely a version of The Boys where most fans would not be able to finish reading it. Let's start with the elephant in the room. In the show, Becca Butcher is assaulted by Homelander, gets pregnant, and disappears for years to raise Ryan in secret. We meet her again in season 2, she has a real relationship with her son, she dies tragically protecting him, and Ryan becomes one of the most important characters in the entire show. Ryan is now potentially the key to killing Homelander in season 5. That's heavy, but it's tragic in a way that gives the story heart. None of that happens in the comics. In the comics, Becca gets pregnant, and the pregnancy goes wrong almost immediately. The fetus develops at supernatural speed and is nearly full term within 3 months. Butcher is in bed with her one night when he hears her gasping for air. By the time he turns on the light, Becca is already dead. Her stomach is ripped open, her organs are everywhere, and floating above the bed is the soupy baby, with the umbilical cord still attached, just torn its way out, already strong enough to use heat vision. The baby looks at Butcher and shoots laser eyes at him. Butcher grabs the nearest object he can find, which happens to be a lamp on the bedside table, and beats the baby to death with it. That's the entire Ryan storyline in the comics. He's born, he kills his mother by tearing her apart from the inside, and Butcher murders him with a lamp before he can even take a second breath. There is no Ryan as a character in the comics. There is no relationship. There is no future for Becca. She gets one of the most graphic deaths in any superhero comic ever written, and her son barely exists for a single panel. The show took that nightmare and turned it into a multi-season character arc, and somehow it's still considered one of the darker shows on streaming. The comics are operating on a completely different level, and the Becca twist gets even more disturbing because in the comics, it wasn't even Homelander who did it. The whole reveal at the end of the comic series is that Black Noir is secretly a clone of Homelander. Vought made him as a failsafe in case Homelander ever went rogue. Same powers, same DNA, same face. But the order to kill Homelander never came, so Noir went insane waiting. To force Vought's hand, he started disguising himself as Homelander and committing horrible acts so the company would finally activate him. He's the one who attacked Becca. He's the one who did most of the worst things Homelander gets blamed for in the comic. Homelander himself spent most of the series slowly going insane because he kept finding evidence of crimes he didn't remember committing. Noir was gaslighting him into becoming the monster Vought feared he'd become. And one of the photos Homelander finds, one of the things he supposedly did, is eating a live infant. That image exists in the comic. There's a panel where Homelander is covered in blood with a baby in his hands, and people will tell you it's one of the most upsetting pages in mainstream comic book history. The show gave us Homelander drinking a whole carton of milk in public to be weird. The comic gave us cannibalistic infanticide as a plot device. This whole clone twist completely changes who comic Homelander is compared to show Homelander. Anthony Starr's Homelander is genuinely a monster. He chose to be what he is. Every cruel thing he does is on him. Comic Homelander is much closer to a victim. He spent years being an actual hero, mostly until photos of horrific crimes he had no memory of committing started showing up, and he could not figure out what was happening to him. By the time he snaps and storms the White House at the end of the comics, he's lost his mind because he genuinely believed he was blacking out and committing atrocities. That makes the comic version a lot more sympathetic in a weird way and a lot less interesting as a villain. The show flipped that completely. Kripke and Anthony Starr decided that Homelander needed to be the worst thing in the universe by choice, not by manipulation, because watching a guy slowly go insane because of hidden photos doesn't have the same impact as watching Homelander stand on a balcony and tell millions of fans that he is better than them and they should worship him. The show has the better villain, the comics have the more uncomfortable plot. Speaking of things the show couldn't touch, let's talk about Tech Knight. In the show, Season 4 introduced him as this BDSM-obsessed weirdo with a sex dungeon. Fans thought it was insane that Amazon went that far, but that's nothing compared to comic Tech Knight, who has a brain tumor that compels him to engage sexually with literally anything that has a hole in it. Anything. Inanimate objects, animals, a hole in the wall, his own butler. The show kept the perversion theme, but took out the actual content because there is no streaming service on Earth that would air a comic-accurate Tech Knight scene. In the Get Some storyline, Tech Knight saves the world from an asteroid impact by flying up into space space and physically having sex with the asteroid until it breaks apart. That's not a joke, that's the actual plot of an issue. The character was Garth Ennis' parody of Batman, and he turned Bruce Wayne into the most disgusting person you've ever read about. Tek Knight in the comics has a sidekick relationship that's openly designed to mock Batman and Robin in the most uncomfortable way possible, with Tek Knight constantly trying to escalate things despite his sidekick wanting nothing to do with it. The whole thing is Garth Ennis being as mean as humanly possible to the entire concept of a billionaire vigilante hero. The show couldn't even hint at most of what comic Tek Knight does, and what they did show in season 4 was already pushing it. Imagine the version of that storyline that exists in the actual source material. There's a reason Amazon ended up just giving him a kink storyline instead of even attempting the comic version. There was no way to film the comic version without the show getting pulled. The plane scene from season 1 is another perfect example of how the show pulled punches. In the show, Homelander and Maeve fly up to a hijacked passenger plane to save it. They fail because Homelander's laser eyes accidentally damage the controls, and instead of trying to find another solution, Homelander abandons the plane and lets it crash. Maeve begs him to do something. He just walks away and pretends it never happened. That scene is one of the most disturbing moments in the entire show, because it perfectly captures how empty Homelander is on the inside. In the comic version, the entire situation is way worse, and also actually 9/11. The plane is one of the hijacked flights from September 11th, originally meant to crash into the World Trade Center. The Seven gets called in to save it, all of them, and what follows is one of the most embarrassingly catastrophic rescue attempts you'll ever read. Jack from Jupiter panics and bails immediately. The Deep punches open a window thinking that's going to help, which sucks a kid out of the plane to his death. Homelander gets so annoyed at the passengers screaming for help that he uses his sonic scream to shut them up, which makes their eardrums explode and kills several of them on the spot. Black Noir, who was supposed to be the one who actually knew how to fly, falls out of the plane during the chaos. By the time Homelander and Maeve get to the cockpit, no one alive can fly the thing. Homelander's solution is to just leave. Mr. Marathon grabs his leg and convinces him to try one more thing because Vought would fire them if they walked away. Homelander tries to push the tail down to level the descent, miscalculates his strength, and breaks the plane in half. Mr. Marathon dies in the impact. The plane crashes directly into the Brooklyn Bridge, killing everyone on board and everyone on the bridge. Then the Seven covers the whole thing up, so in the show, Homelander makes a calculated decision to let people die. In the comic, the Seven are so useless and self-absorbed that they personally caused 9/11 by trying to fix it. The show couldn't touch any of this because depicting actual 9/11 with superheroes accidentally making it happen would be career-ending television. Then there's the ending, and this is where the comics really lose their mind. The show is heading toward a finale where presumably Homelander dies and the boys win in some morally complicated way. The comic ending is absolutely nothing like that. After Homelander finally dies, killed by his own clone Noir in the Oval Office, Butcher just keeps going. He doesn't celebrate, he doesn't go home. He decides that killing Homelander wasn't enough and that the entire problem is Compound V itself. Compound V has leaked into the food supply, which means there are trace amounts in everyone on Earth. So Butcher's plan is to set off a global biological weapon that will kill everyone with even the smallest amount of V in their blood. Every super, every retired super, anyone who got contaminated by accident, all of them dead at once. He doesn't care that this will kill millions of innocent civilians along the way. The boys find out and try to stop him, so Butcher kills them. He kills Mother's Milk by exploding a grenade in his face and then suffocating him. He sets off a bomb in the boys' headquarters that kills Frenchie and Kimiko. He kills the Legend, Vogelbaum, and other allies he's worked with for years. By the time Huey figures out what's happening, almost every main character is already dead. The final fight happens on top of the Empire State Building. Butcher and Huey, the mentor and the kid he basically adopted into this life, beating each other senseless on a skyscraper. They both fall off. Butcher survives but is paralyzed from the neck down. He knows he'll spend the rest of his life as an invalid in a prison hospital, and he refuses to accept that, so he manipulates Huey one last time. He looks his former friend in the eyes and lies to him, claiming that he murdered Huey's parents. Huey, full of rage and grief, picks up a metal spike and rams it through Butcher's chest. Butcher dies smiling because he just got the death he wanted, and he made Huey do it for him. The last issue of the comic is Huey alone, surrounded by the bodies of every friend he ever had, marrying Annie and trying to build a normal life in Scotland. Almost every soup on Earth is dead. Most of the boys are dead. The world is broken. That's how Garth Ennis ends his story. There is no happy resolution. There is no villain defeated. There's just one lonely guy left who watched his entire family kill each other. The show is going to do something completely different. Eric Kripke has already said the show won't follow the comic ending exactly. He said multiple times that he wants the conclusion to feel earned and emotionally satisfying, and that the comic ending, while powerful in print, just wouldn't translate to television in the same way. Plus, the show built up Ryan over 5 seasons to be this potential Homelander killer. The comics had nothing like that. The show built Soldier Boy as Homelander's father with a complicated family dynamic. The comics had nothing like that. The show made Stan Edgar one of the most compelling characters by making him the calm corporate face of Vault. The comics version of Stan Edgar is basically a footnote. Almost every emotional anchor that makes the show work was invented by Kripke specifically because the comics didn't have one. That's the real difference between the two. The comics are pure shock value, pure cynicism, pure Garth Ennis hating superheroes, and wanting to write the most extreme parody he can imagine. They are brilliant, they are influential, they are also legitimately one of the most disturbing things ever printed in a mainstream comic. The show takes the same premise, the same characters, the same anti-corporate, anti-superhero energy, and adds something the comics never really had. Heart, real character relationships, people you actually care about. Ryan, Becca, Soldier Boy, Stan Edgar, Sister Sage, even Homelander's tortured psychology, none of that depth exists in the source material. The comics give you nightmares, the show gives you heartbreak. Both are doing something different and both work for what they are trying to be, but anyone who thinks the show is too extreme has clearly never picked up the source material. Reading the Boys comic is the kind of thing where you finish and feel like you need to take a shower and rethink your life choices. So yeah, when season 5 wraps up and people complain that the show ended too soft or too clean or didn't fully commit to the bleakness of the source material, just remember that fully committing to the source material would mean watching Butcher beat a baby to death with a lamp on screen. Some things are better adapted than copied. Drop a comment with the most messed up moment from the comics that you think the show should have actually included, or the one you're glad they cut. Subscribe if you're new, more deep dives into the universe coming.